And welcome back, live here to the studio of RJB Starcraft Cast's YouTube channel, where I, RJB, will this time bring you a slightly more digestible video. Because my videos as of late have been rather lengthy, so this one is going to be rather short, because I'm going to cast a single replay instead of a multitude of replays within a single video. Because honestly, I've been falling into the trend of just going for 1 hour long videos, or maybe 90-minute long videos. And I must admit, and I must acknowledge, that I am completely aware that that is not digestible for you, the viewer, whatsoever. So today I'm going for a really short replay. Change the colors, and we here have blue, played by Scan, the Blue Zerg. Scan is a semi-pro / amateur Korean regular map player. He's really good at regular maps. Really good. Really good. And here we have Father Mandingo, also known as Milchelas. And he's got a couple of other names, but for the last couple of years he's been known as Mandingo. For whatever reason he chose that name. And he's playing the Red Terran. And this is played in the Season 15 of the Starcraft World League. Maybe Season 14. One of those two, not too sure. Anyway, a small detail. Scan. This was during a period where Scan was kind of just winging his builds based off of his regular map ranked experience. So he didn't really have that much knowledge about fastest map yet. He was just going purely off of low money knowledge and his experience in that regard, knowledge about unit interaction and all that kind of stuff. So it might be really interesting to see what he's going to do, why he's going to do it, what his thought process is, and what the results are going to be. Of course, place hatchery right over there. That's something Koreans like to do. Putting hatchery over there instead of over here. Most Western players place it over here, because then you have all your production within a nice little box. He's placing it on the side because he wants to get creep on this side of his base, and just wants to make sure that the drones just go towards this or that instead of going down to the low side. So as if he scouts his choke rather early on into the game, Mandingo already trying to be the aggressor. Is this sunken? No, it's still a creep colony. Might turn into a sunken soon. Marines are not deciding to go aggressive because a couple of Zerglings are already on the way to stop this and nip it in the bud. SV does some scouting as he gets caught. Zergling not yet doing much. Marines just balling up. Some of them are still being rallied to the choke point there. Terran Academy is on the way for the stim upgrade, I am sure. Medics as well. Zerglings meeting the Marines. Zerglings getting a good catch on those Marines, but the Marines being superior in number come out alive and on top, which makes Scan pull those Marines back to his choke. He's adding on 2 more creep colonies for more sunkens. He's already making a lair. 3 minutes into the game, he's making a lair. This is very early, even before he starts making his 3rd hatchery. So it's starting to look like a 2-hatch Mulelisk build, as you would most often see on the regular maps, where people go for 2 extra hatcheries into Mulelisks. Or you can call it 3-hatch Mule. I'm not too sure. My knowledge in that regard is a little bit limited. 2-hatch Mule, but he might be adding on a Hylisk then as well. I'm not too sure what he's going to do because his options are quite numerous. He's not pushing his Sunkens out into the middle, as most players would do. He's keeping them rather concentrated in this little choke point here, which might speed up the push that Mandingo is going to try to pull off a little bit further into the game. He's already lifting over a barrack for either fire bats here on the side or getting vision over the choke if he does see that he cannot land that barrack there on the side. It's always worth it to try. Not always worth it, but in this case it is worth it. Might work out in favor of him, honestly. There's already a Spire being made at 4:10 into the game. That's a very fast Spire timing for Scan. Still adding Sunkens onto the choke. Quite a lot of them, actually. He doesn't need that many. But he does, of course, not know what Mandingo is up to. Mandingo here finds the creep. So he knows that there's something here in the side that is giving him vision. But whether he can see... Yeah, he can see it. Alright, he's seen the barracks. The barracks is going to land, I'm sure. But it gets spotted out. So maybe those Zerglings are going to be pulled over to stop the firebat that's being produced there. Stim upgrade, of course, has finished. He's Now adding on a command center as well, adding a starport rather early into the game. There's an engineering bay that he's going to hover over the Sunken to give additional range to the tank. But I don't think he made siege mode for the tank. There's no siege mode upgrading. There's a tank on the way, but no siege mode. That's going to hurt Mandingo a little bit. So there's the siege mode. It's a little bit slowed down. It's going to take a while before you can start sieging the front here. So we might be seeing those Mulisks from Scan wreak some havoc in Mandingo's base. Because I'm 100% sure that Scan has a really good Mulisk micro. Because what I've seen so far is micro on every single race is pretty much better than everyone else's. It's pretty much the same level as Brain's micro. That's the level of micro that I've been seeing from Scan. The only difference with Scan is that, of course, he lacks the same amount of experience and knowledge and insight that Brain, for example, does have. He's adding on 2 more hatcheries there in the front. Still very concentrated with his Sunkens there in the front. But given that he's going for Mulisks, that doesn't really matter all that much because he can pick off those tanks here from the side, even pick off those Mulisks. Let's focus on... Can I follow it? Alright, I'm following the Mulisk now. Let's see if that's gonna turn into something juicy or not. Armory order on the way for the Goliaths, of course. He tried to stim into the front here, but all of his Marines got chunked out. Well, that's a huge loss for Mandingo there. That's gonna really hurt him. Because those Mulisks now are facing way less opposition than they would face if those Marines were there. Now he can pick off those Marines without much trouble. There's the micro, doing it pretty well. Picks off 1 tank, picks off tank number 2. Soon, there he goes, pick up tank number 2. All Mulisks are still alive. Mulisks now flying away. More Mulisks on the way, regrouping with those other Mulisks. He's got them crewed up with the Overlord there in the side or with a larva, I'm not sure. Either are viable options to stack your Mulisks, so first he's going for an engineering bay. There's no engineering bay anywhere inside of Mandingo's base, so he will lose the ability to produce turrets, which is honestly quite crucial. He picks up 2 Marines there, going around, picks up units 1 by 1. No Mulisks of his have gone down yet. There's a Valkyrie. He might go against the Valkyrie quite well, and manages to pick up the Valkyrie, almost goes for the turret instead, kills the turret. Goes for SCVs next, I assume. No, he's going for turret number 2. Valkyrie still there, running away. More Valkyries on the way because he's got the armory. Now the Marines are coming in, stimming into the fight. But it looks like Scan is doing a lot of damage here, and he has not lost a single Mulisk from that stack. So all Mulisks are still alive. That's some really good micro he's been displaying right there. Regroups it with more Mulisks, so he's got 10 Mulisks in total now. That should be enough to at least one-shot a lot of units. Right, there's a Valkyrie there being repaired. The factory placement there is really working out really poorly for him. He snipes that one Valkyrie, another Valkyrie there on the way. 2 Mulisks have gone down this time around, a couple of Marines as well. Looks like Mandingo is bleeding quite a bit. Hive is on the way now for Scan. And he's just very slowly building up while microing here on the side. He's now setting in Zerglings as well. That's definitely not what Mandingo wanted to be facing. Zerglings with Mulisks. This is definitely a low money strategy coming out here from Scan. Valkyries going down very slowly. Mulisks going down as well. The Marines here being placed inside that little chokehold here. Little pathway where only single file Zerglings can get into it. It's a really great choice from Mandingo there. Makes it really hard for those Zerglings to be as effective as they could have been. But Scan killing the factory there in the front means there's no tanks coming out for Mandingo because this one doesn't have a machine shop. He's now making more barracks. He's now adding fire bats into the mix as well. His hive has almost finished. Mule is still wreaking havoc. Marines are going to be canceling this turret there. He gets a great surround, a couple of units there. The Marines there in the back are all what's left alive. Vessel is out. Does it have radiate? I'm not sure. Valkyrie coming out as well. And Mandingo is getting picked apart here by something I'm sure he has never ever faced before, because this is something I've not really seen people do before. Going for this specific build order is quite unique. Zerglings have not done all that much. They've mostly just been food for those Marines to eat up, the fire bats eating up those Zerglings as well. It's mostly the Mulists that have been really dealing some significant amount of damage. So Scan, knowing he's kept Mandingo really small, starts throwing out all of his tech, all of his production. So he has 2 Hylas then on the way, so he can get range and Hydralisk speed both at the same time. He's got a Great Aspire on the way as well, which tells me that he's going for Guardian Hydralisk combination. Hydralisk's there to support and keep the Guardians alive from things like Valkyries and Vessels and Goliaths, whereas the Guardians will just be shooting on stuff on the ground. It's a great combination that is quite a common low map strategy for the Zerg to go into Terran, but they go for Guardians and Hydralisk as a combination. Because on low money maps, mass Marines is very common against Terran. Where you get like 3 Vessels and some Marines, and then you just go ham on whatever you can find and try to fight against those Mutalisks. Well, the Fire Mount has finished. 2 Defiler Mounts in fact, so he's going for Plague and Consume both at the same time. He manages to get a great surround on those Valkyries. Valkyries now running away, a couple of Scorches there sitting. Scorch now chasing the Valkyries. Mandingo is trying to rebuild, which honestly he's been able to rebuild quite quick because he's got so many SCVs up and running. His economy is all fine and dandy, but it of course does take a lot of time to get all those factories back up, and he's mostly relying on his gas income. And his gas income isn't exactly where it should be, because it is slowing down his recovery with building his entire base. So that means a lot of SCVs on the minerals, not that many on the gas. It is important in the game. So the Guardians have finished. Hydralisks have finished as well. He's going to set up here in the front, prepare himself for the frontal attack on Mandingo. And can Mandingo hold this, or is Mandingo going to fall short and bite the dust? Not too sure. Scan, though, at the moment is supply stuck. He does have some Overlords here on the way, I want to say, but Overlords there in the front, alright. He's got Overlords on the way. Vessel is trying to be hunting for the drones. I'm not sure if Scan has the Burrow upgrade. Otherwise, this might hurt him a lot. He hasn't noticed it yet. The Scourges haven't moved yet. Fight happening here in the front. Guardians mowing down those ground forces really, really quickly. Hydralisk there to protect the against the Valkyries. Valkyries there just being mislocated by accident by Mandingo. He got the Radiate off. Drones have gone down. Second group of drones also going down. I mean, Scan has no drones at the moment, but he might have a sufficient amount of units here inside of Mandingo's base to pull off the win. It's going to be very difficult for Mandingo to pull off a win here. He does have some Valkyries on the way, because pilots are being kept alive there in the back. Tanks are going down rather quick as well. Vessels are there. They do these Vessels. They do have energy for almost Radiate. So there comes one Radiate. Radiate number 2 going to come out soon as well. More Hydralisks are on the way to regroup. He's got to take out a tank there in the back. Once he takes out the tank there in the back, he might be capable of dealing some significant damage. If that tank in the back stays alive, tank goes down. That means now the Hydralisks have a free game here on the low ground. He made a couple more drones back onto his minerals. He's mostly just making Scorches to take out Vessels and Valkyries. He isn't really too worried about ground force, because his Guardians are just clearing out whatever there is inside of Mandingo's base. Mandingo slowly being pushed back, slowly losing all of his forces on the ground there. Both of their supplies are almost equal at this point, even though Mandingo had like a 30 or 40 supply lead over Scan just earlier. Scorches going in one by one. Kills another Vessel. One Vessel is alive. Mandingo here bites the dust. He calls for the rematch. Scan hasn't given him the yes yet. And Father Mandingo even leaves before Scan gives him the yes, let's remake. GG. No GG today, just a rematch. I'm not sure whether they even went for the rematch. And yeah, actually quite a nice game here from Scan, because Mandingo is not a pushover for... Yeah, he's definitely not a pushover. He has managed to beat a lot of good Western fastest map players consistently. He's always in the top of the ranks. And honestly, Scan made him look like a pushover here. He made him look like a pushover. If Mandingo wasn't prepared for anything that Scan was throwing out at him, and I'm honestly quite impressed by Scan. The micro was on point. The macro was on point. The timings were somewhat on point, but that's mostly because he's basing all of his timings on low money timings and shoving them forward by a bit. But he's basically doing the same as a low money build. Guardian Hydralisks start off with some Zerglings, then you go into Mutalisks. The Mutalisks there, of course, to harass the Marines and the tanks to prevent the push from happening. Perhaps even pick off some things left and right in the enemy base. Then you switch over to the Great Aspire, as we saw with the double Hydralisk then for legs and speed and range. Well, that's all the same thing, lags and range. And then you transition into what used to be one of the staple original Starcraft fastest map builds, which was Hydralisk's supporting Guardians. And he's doing that same thing, but on fastest map. I really like it. It's different, very different, and probably something we'll never see again from anyone else but Scan himself. Because I feel he's the only person currently active who has the micro skill pull off a very consistent and effective Mutalisk micro build, as compared to Gold, SCV, and JH, who don't have the same level of micro for their Zerg units. Nonetheless, interesting game, short and quick one. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope I wasn't rambling too much. And yeah, see you next time. I'm gonna probably cast another ZVT by Kokani against Gangster Jose. Probably tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, sometime this week, and see how that one pans out. It was specifically requested by Kokani himself. Have a good day.